This is me a year ago doing my first ever park run.
My legs are giving out on me. I'm at 3.2.
And I was hating every second of it.
My legs are not happy. Oh, good Lord, is it hard.
But over the past year, I've come to love the act of going for a run, and it all changed when I learned about LSD. No, not that kind, this one. Okay, first we're going to do a quick history lesson. The concept of running longer distances at slower paces was first proposed by Arthur Newton, a British runner who competed in the early 20th century. He discovered that by running more miles at an easy pace, he could improve his endurance and performance in races, and he also found that running slowly helped him avoid injuries and recover faster. But it wasn't until the 1960s that LSD running became popular amongst runners and coaches. The term long slow distance was coined by a guy named Joe Henderson. Now, he advocated for LSD running as an alternative to the traditional approach of high intensity training, which he called the pain, torture, and agony method, which, I mean, yeah, fair enough. In his book, Henderson documented the success stories of 6 competitive runners who followed an LSD training regime, sometimes combining a few more strenuous workouts with the regular LSD running. One of the most famous examples of LSD running was the New Zealand team that dominated distance running in the 60s and 70s. Led by coach Arthur Lydiard, who was influenced by Newton's ideas, the team included legends such as Peter Snell, Murray Holberg, John Walker, and Rod Dixon. Don't worry, before I researched this movie, I didn't know those names either. They trained by running up to 100 miles, or 160 kilometers per week at a comfortable pace, with occasional speed work and hill sessions, all on varying terrain like trails, roads, and grass. The results were crazy. The New Zealand team won multiple Olympic medals and set several world records in not only marathons, but also in 100-meter races and many more distance races across the Olympics. And they inspired generations of runners to follow their example and embrace LSD running as a way to improve their fitness and performance. Okay, history lesson over. So I learned all of this information last year, and then I started thinking this all sounds really interesting and cool and also way too good to be true. Surely it's not as easy as just running slower for longer, right? I mean, is there really any proof that LSD running can actually make me, as just a regular guy, a better runner?
In short, yes, science has shown that LSD running can improve your aerobic fitness, but it has also proven that LSD training isn't the most effective method. So what does happen inside your body when you run slowly for a long time? And what is the most effective method of training then?
In one scientific study that compared the effects of LSD training and interval training on VO2 max improvement, they concluded that LSD training was outdated for improving VO2 max and that interval training was superior for enhancing aerobic power.
As for what your body does during LSD training, the whole point is that you're teaching your body to use the fat reserves instead of the glucose reserves. That way your body learns how to use those energy reserves, and then when you're doing race pace later on, your body will know to use the fat reserves and not the sugar reserves, and you won't crash and burn.
In another study that examined the effects of LSD running on aerobic fitness conducted by Mikola et al. And a bunch of other people, they randomly assigned 24 well-trained male runners to one of 2 groups, LSD or mixed intensity training. Both groups performed similar total workloads and they trained 6 times per week for 9 weeks. The results showed that LSD running improved their VO2 max, or the maximum amount of oxygen their body can use during exercise, by 4%. However, the MIT group improved VO2 max by 10%.
These studies suggest that LSD running can improve your aerobic fitness, but it might not be the most effective, or even as effective as other methods.
But what does that mean for me, given that I'm training for a marathon? Well, it means that LSD training shouldn't be the only type of training I do. And most sports scientists would agree with that knowledge that we have now. LSD training for running is outdated for marathons because it doesn't train the specific physiological systems that are required for running a fast marathon. Instead, marathon runners such as myself should follow a periodized program that includes tempo runs, interval runs, and long runs. But if LSD running isn't the most effective training method, then why do I still do it? Well, if I were a professional athlete, then this would absolutely be the question that I'd ask myself in the mirror every morning. But here's the deal, I'm not. I'm just a guy trying to improve his fitness so he can go and do cooler things in life and try and run my first marathon at the end of this year. And while I could be improving way more by doing some more intense interval training, that fails to take into account one really important factor: fun. I used to hate running because I didn't like the act of going for a run. I couldn't find any joy in going out for a run because I was too focused on how much it just sucked. As soon as I started slowing my runs down and allowing myself to be in the moment, I started seeing my runs as a moment to unwind and enjoy being outside for some time, rather than something that I had to force myself to do because I felt like I had to. One of the main reasons why I and many others hate running at the start is because we run too fast for our current fitness level. Like that causes us to experience general discomfort, fatigue, breathlessness, pain during and after our runs, and in turn we end up associating running with negative emotions like stress, anxiety, fear, or even boredom. Now, LSD running can help us break that cycle by allowing us to run at a comfortable pace that matches our current aerobic capacity. That means that you can run without gasping for air, without feeling like your legs are on fire, and without worrying about how fast or how far you're going. So I started working LSD running into my training, and instead of constantly trying to run 5 kilometers as fast as I could, I stopped focusing on running distance completely. All I did was set a time for myself and make sure that I ran, no matter how slowly, for the entire time. And I started off slow, like agonizingly slow.
I feel like an idiot. I feel like I've just learned how to actually run. Like I was always in the past trying to go for distance or time or whatever. I don't feel like I'm gonna pass out any second. And I actually feel like I can build from this base. Like I can go, right now I'm running like a 7.5 minute kilometer, super slow. But I feel like I could keep this up for like a really long time.
I feel like that's what running is supposed to feel like. I don't feel wrecked afterwards either. I feel good.
My first runs using the LSD method were just that. They were long and they were slow. When I started, I could barely run 3 kilometers without stopping. Then I tried 5.5 kilometers, running at a 7.5 minute pace. And suddenly I felt like I'd cracked the code, like I'd finally discovered some massive secret that the running world had just been keeping from me. From there, I just kept building it up. I went from 5 kilometers to 6, 6 to 8, and eventually I was running nearly 8.5 kilometers without stopping at a 7 minute and 10 second pace. Even a few weeks before I completed that 8.4 kilometer run, I couldn't have ever imagined running anything even remotely close to that distance, let alone feeling comfortable doing it. And that single accomplishment, that one thing, completing that 8.4 kilometer run, is what flipped some kind of switch in my brain, something that made me go from being someone who occasionally goes for a run whenever I felt like it, to really identifying as a runner.
So that all sounds really nice and all, but how do you actually do an LSD run? Well, most people agree that a typical LSD run should be about 1 to 3 minutes per mile, or 1.6 to 4.8 minutes per kilometer, slower than your 10 kilometer pace. That's exactly how I did it. However, it's important to note that you shouldn't increase your weekly mileage by more than 10% if you're using miles, or 16% per week if you're using kilometers to avoid injury or overtraining. I have also made that mistake before.
Look, I know that this isn't the most effective form of training for running, and I'm not ever claiming that it is. In fact, most of my runs these days aren't even LSD runs anymore, and as I ramp up my training for my marathons, I've started working in more modern training ideas. You remember how earlier I mentioned those tempo, interval, and long runs? As much as my training might look and feel different now, I have to attribute my love of running now to the ideas that LSD running gave me. LSD running isn't about speed, it's about consistency, patience, and enjoyment. It's about finding a rhythm or a flow. It's about listening to your body, your breath, and your surroundings. It's about running for the sake of running, not for the sake of a clock or a medal. LSD running is not a magic pill that will make you faster overnight. It's a long-term investment that will pay off in the long run. It's a way of training smarter, not harder. It's a way of respecting your limits, but also challenging them. And it's a way of discovering yourself as a runner and as a person. It's about not just being someone who goes on runs when it's nice weather and you have the motivation. It's about allowing yourself to become someone who calls themselves a runner and identifies with that label. So, if you hate running but you still want to be a runner of some kind, let me personally recommend trying long, slow distance running. Maybe it'll turn you into a runner after all.
Hey, that's the end of the movie. Thank you so much for watching it and being here, and I hope that you at least learned something and take something away from it. If you want to check out the sources for those scientific studies and a couple other things, they're all linked in the description. One final thing, I make all of these movies by myself, including the animation, filming, writing, research, everything, and I try to do one a week. That's a lot of work, and it's just me. So if you'd like to support me as an independent creator, you can do so by checking out my Patreon at the link in the description. I try to get these movies there earlier for the Patreon, and if you subscribe to the Patreon, I'll put your name here at the end of every movie, which I think is pretty cool. Alright, that's it, and I'll see you next week.